discussion created by millennials for millennials. In today's episode, we will be discussing the Democratic primaries and the Republican primaries coming off a crucial and eventful primary day 2 days ago on Tuesday. The pundits were calling it Super Tuesday 3. Quite frankly, it was make or break for a lot of candidates, specifically on the Republican side, and solely Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side. A lot of these candidates, their path became very grim, while for other candidates like Clinton and Trump, the path became very clear. We're going to start off with the Democratic primary. Coming off a Michigan upset, a lot of pundits saw Sanders as having a chance to fight and finally see Clinton's advantage decrease. But nothing of the such happened. Clinton swept all of the 5 states voting: Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Missouri, and Illinois. Frankly, in a lot of states like Florida, it wasn't a surprise. Clinton was seen as a clear favorite, and specifically in North Carolina as well. But in states like Missouri, Ohio, and Illinois, these were the states that were supposed to give Sanders that fighting chance, and Clinton won. In terms of percentages, the delegates will be fairly equal, but it's all about that momentum as we go in and we close in the race. So Alexis, Bernie Sanders, 10 months ago, nobody even knew who this man was. 73-year-old Vermont senator. He brands himself as a democratic socialist. How could somebody in the United States possibly do that? He comes back and he fights Hillary Clinton. He decreases her advantage. But what's going on with his path now? It looks grim. The delegate counts against him. Is it over for Bernie Sanders?
Well, Sanders had a lot of momentum after the first Super Tuesday, and now after the 15th, his path seems fairly dismal. These 5 states were a huge upset, especially, like you said, with Illinois and Ohio. And with this loss of momentum combined with the way the media is going to spin this loss and say that he should just drop out for the good of the party, it doesn't seem like there's much he can do at this point to recover and to catch up with the delegate count.
Well, I think that there's a plethora of reasons right now why Sanders shouldn't drop out of the race, and we'll get to that a little later. And while it is very unlikely that he will be able to match Hillary Clinton's delegate total, it's not entirely impossible. If you look at the election schedule on the Democratic side coming up, on March 22nd, you have Arizona primary, the Idaho caucus, and the Utah primary. Idaho and Utah are both states demographically, and in terms of the polls that have been run there, they show that Bernie Sanders should win both of those states rather easily, and he should have a very good chance in Arizona with the white, rural, and working class vote there, as well as with the many college students, and even Latinos, as he's been doing well with the Hispanic vote. March 26th, Alaska caucus, Hawaii caucus, Washington caucus, all states demographically where Sanders should beat Clinton and beat her rather easily, and those are also caucuses. He does much better in that format than he does with the primary format. And then on April 5th, we have Wisconsin. There's been a lot of polling done there so far. Very similar makeup to Minnesota, where Sanders already won, and the polls show him with a decent lead over Clinton in Wisconsin as well. And then on April 9th, Wyoming is again another state demographically should be a fairly easy state for Sanders to beat Clinton in. So you see these 8 states that are coming up on the Democratic side. Bernie Sanders should at least win 7 of them. He could potentially win all 8 of them. That would be a huge momentum boost for his campaign, and he can start to chip away at her delegate lead.
Well, even if he did, he'd have to win them by pretty huge margins, at least 52 to 54%, to even somewhat catch up with Hillary Clinton. And that's not even counting in the fact that she has 467 superdelegates that are somewhat pledged to her at this point versus Bernie Sanders' dismal 26. So taking that into account, it seems very unlikely, given the loss of momentum that Alexis and Aldo were talking about, that would actually occur.
And just so we have the audience, that we could give them a little bit more reference on the delegate count, Clinton currently stands at 1,606, 467 of which are superdelegates, as Gina alluded to, and Sanders stands at 851, 26 superdelegates. We still have 2,308 delegates remaining, which really, if Sanders can get going somehow, despite the momentum on Clinton's side, it could give him a big boost. And these candidates need 2,383 delegates. I just want to throw out the question, the media is a big force in this situation. It doesn't matter who has the right policy. If the media makes it seem like one candidate has the advantage, then ultimately people are going to believe that that candidate is right for them. So my question is, how can Sanders overcome this power of the media, especially as Alexis alluded to after last Tuesday, where they're going to be pushing the fact that she won Illinois, she won Florida, she won North Carolina, she won Missouri, she won Ohio, and they've been making this point throughout the whole primary season. Her voters, her base is more diverse than Sanders.
Well, I think a big benefit to him is that a lot of the media attention, though, actually right now is not going to the Democratic side, and people are largely ignoring the success that Hillary Clinton had on Tuesday because of the circus that's going on right now in the Republican primaries. Because of all the focus on Donald Trump and whether or not we're going to have a contested convention there, a lot of people aren't even paying attention to the Democratic side of the race. So that, at this point, benefits Bernie Sanders until he gets to a point in the map here with the coming up primaries where he can start picking up momentum again for his campaign.
But Clinton already has the added advantage of her name recognition and the popularity she already has, so I don't really see how the media not focusing on the Democratic side could in any way aid Sanders. If anything, I think it's just going to help Hillary.
But there is a lot of excitement. There's a large enthusiasm gap, and the Clinton campaign will admit this, between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. His supporters are much more enthusiastic about him than her supporters are for her. So even if the media is not paying a lot of attention to him, especially with these states coming up, he already knows that he has a core group of supporters there who are going to come out in large numbers to vote for him. So I don't think that that's going to be a big issue for him in the coming days until we start getting to these points where he can start picking up momentum.
Well, you have to take into account that a lot of these Democratic primaries are closed to purely Democratic voters. And a lot of Bernie Sanders, well, I guess not all of them, but a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters are more independent voters. So in getting an actual electable nominee, while he may not be the most electable in a general election for everyone, he seems to be the most electable for the Democratic Party at this time, especially considering that Clinton is, the establishment candidate. I will have to say that one of the things that the media has been doing is they haven't been talking about how Bernie has been splitting votes with Hillary in a lot of these situations. A lot of votes have been 48-52, a lot of them have been rather close. So it's not like Hillary Clinton has been sweeping these states, although she has swept a couple.
Well, I'm glad that Davis mentions enthusiasm and voter turnout, because as we move on, we have a clear picture of what the general election is going to look like on the Democratic side with their candidate, which seems like it's going to be Clinton. So, if it's Clinton, voter turnout, high, low, what's it looking like? Is she the strongest candidate in terms of attracting people and getting these voters to help them beat the Republicans?
Well, what's interesting is if the nominee is Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders actually does much better in the polls against Donald Trump, and there's a big reason why for that. Today in America, 40% of registered voters identify themselves as independents, not members of the Democrat or Republican Party. And Bernie Sanders does very well with independent voters. There are a ton of voters in this country who, if they're independents, and you ask them, who are you supporting in this election, they'll tell you, oh, my top two choices in no particular order are Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. So Bernie Sanders does better against Trump than Hillary Clinton does because of the large amount of the independent vote that he gets from her. The large amount of the independent vote that he gets from Donald Trump. So there are a lot of people, the ones who are looking for an outsider, for some kind of anti-establishment change in this election. Those people are going to be more willing to vote for Sanders against Trump as opposed to Clinton against Trump. Whereas if it's Hillary Clinton, the Democratic nominee, a lot of those votes might go to Trump and help him try and catch up with her.
I agree with you on that, and I think in regards to voter turnout, if Clinton is the nominee, we're going to see the same pattern that we've seen over the years in terms of Democratic voter turnout, especially amongst young adults. They don't have that enthusiasm behind Clinton, even if her opposition is Trump.
Before we move on here to the Republican primaries, I want to pose one final question. Let's say Bernie Sanders does make a roaring comeback. Doesn't seem likely, but let's say he does. Superdelegates are going to become a big, crucial role in the election process of the nominee. What do you guys think about superdelegates? Are they legitimate or are they kind of sketchy?
Well, I think a lot of the Democratic Party at this point, who is not pro-Clinton, is seeing superdelegates as a way to pretty much shove Hillary Clinton down the throats of Democrats who don't all support Hillary Clinton. She's come in with a lot of baggage from her past careers, and she doesn't seem to have the capability to truly compromise with Republicans like Bernie possibly would be able to do.
But, ultimately, I think that whoever comes out with the most pledged delegates at the end of the system, the superdelegates are going to flip and most likely go their way. So if Bernie Sanders somehow did come out with more delegates than Hillary Clinton, as unlikely as it may be, in terms of pledged delegates, the superdelegates will flip and they will go towards him because ultimately the Democrats are going to put up who has the best chance of winning in the general election.
Shake your head.
I don't see that it's likely that the superdelegates will flip despite the amount of delegates he gets. She is on the establishment side. We've seen that the superdelegates are pledged to her almost unanimously, so it seems very unlikely that they would flip despite the delegate turnout.
One more point that I do think we need to bring up in terms of Bernie Sanders' possibility of being the nominee for the Democratic Party is we do not know what's going to come out of this Hillary Clinton email investigation with the FBI. There could be something that comes out very soon that could be very damaging to her campaign. And if in that scenario, either one, she was damaged so much that it was affecting her numbers in the election and more people were voting for Sanders, or if she was indicted potentially by the FBI and by the Justice Department and she had to drop out because of legal issues, Bernie Sanders will need to stay in the race because of that, because he will be the Democrats' only viable option left to take over her place as the nominee in the general